In this episode, I have the honor of speaking with Sarah Trone Garriott, who does the good work with the Des Moines Metro Area Religious Council. We have a pretty sobering conversation about food insecurity in central Iowa, which was already in crisis and is about to get much, much worse starting November 1st when over 50,000 people in Polk County will lose their SNAP benefits or their supplemental nutrition benefits. But fear not, listener, she offers several ways that you can get involved and support. I also learned that there's such a thing as a fried chicken Momo, so let's get to the show. It's Great to Meet You is a production of the First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. At First Unitarian, we love radically, grow ethically and spiritually, and serve justly. Unitarian Universalism is a pluralistic religious tradition, meaning we don't have a dogmatic statement of belief. Rather, we covenant with one another to put love at the center of our actions. We recognize the inherent worth and dignity of everyone and our interconnectedness with one another. And so our justice work seeks to affirm that worth for all people. If you think all people should be able to flourish and you believe your spiritual journey is less about dogma and more about how you treat one another in the world, you might be a UU. Let's get to the show. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining me on It's Great to Meet You, the show where we meet the good people of Des Moines out there doing the good work. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Seek, and I serve as the minister at First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. Today, we're talking with the Reverend Sarah Trone Garriott, coordinator of Interfaith Engagement at DMARC, the Des Moines Area Religious Council. Reverend Sarah, it's great to meet you.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Please tell us about your work with DMARC.
Yeah, so I have a lot of roles in the community, and so I joke that I have a lot of part-time jobs. I am a state senator for Dallas County. I'm a Lutheran pastor, so I do preach on the weekends. And then I am the coordinator of interfaith engagement for the Des Moines Area Religious Council, which is a long way of saying I work with all of the diverse religious communities in this metro area. I joke that I'm everyone's favorite Lutheran minister, whether it's the atheist freethinkers, the UU community, the Bosnian Muslim community, the Hindu community, the Sikh community, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We can't solve big problems unless we're working together. Mm-hmm. And we need lots of folks coming together on the issue of food insecurity. And DMARC has always functioned in that way. We've been about creating these partnerships to assist our neighbors. And food pantry work is our primary focus. And we have about 30,000 unique individuals every month seeking assistance here in the metro area and the surrounding counties. And so I build relationships across religious diversity. I do these Meet Your Religious Neighbor open house events. One of our next events coming up is we're having a concert on November 2nd in the evening called Songs of Gratitude, where we have all of these different religious communities sharing a song of thanksgiving. And it's a really nice community. Let's come together. Let's be grateful. And let's try to support a really important effort, which is assisting our neighbors in need. I also do a camp for high school students every summer so they can get to know their neighbors and reflect a little bit more on their own beliefs or values, because it's not, you don't have to be religious to be interested in your neighbors, but we can all be inspired by our neighbors. Because when we see how our neighbors live out their faith or values, there's always something we can learn from that. And that can inspire us to reflect on ourselves and say, okay, I also care about helping my neighbor. I love how this community does that. How can I live that out in my own authentic way? How can I find some part of my practices, tradition, beliefs that reflect that and really live into that? And so I think I have the most fun in the community because I get to go to everyone's holidays, festivals, celebrations, and there's always a lot of food as part of my work because food brings everyone together. It's a great way to show hospitality, break down barriers. And every culture, every religion values feeding our neighbors, especially those in need.
Wow, that is a lot of hats. And thank you for doing this work. I'm thinking about the way you're describing this as our neighbors, right? And this language around neighbors has religious connotations for so many people about what do we owe our neighbors, right? To welcome the neighbor, to feed the neighbor. Are you finding that language transcends any particular denomination and is sort of a global ethical commitment?
I think in every religious tradition, there are stories, there are practices that help people to see other folks as their neighbors, to
Yeah.
remind them that they are their neighbors, because in so many ways we try to separate ourselves from folks who are different. And this has been a continual challenge throughout history, is how do you remember that the people who are living near you are the people who are your neighbors. And we are so much stronger when we're building relationships and understanding, when we're working together, when we're sharing what we have. That makes a stronger community. We create so many problems when folks start pulling inward and putting up those walls.
You're getting at this sort of the paradigm of scarcity versus the paradigm of abundance, right? That when we see one another as neighbors, we're more inclined to share, to support, and when we sense that we're under threat or experiencing scarcity, we sort of pull in. So in some ways, your work has that kind of I guess I would say an optimism, right? As well as an ethical or spiritual commitment. How do you maintain that spirit when we are sort of drowning in a combative language and language around not neighbors but aliens?
Yeah. So the thing that always helps me the most is to get out into the
Mhm.
community, because when I'm in my community connecting with people all across these differences, things seem so much better. And it's
Yeah.
so much more positive and so much more hopeful when I'm connecting with folks on the ground. When you are watching the news, when you're consuming social media, you end up getting a very different picture of the world than what you would find right outside your doorstep. And sometimes just by going out and looking around, you actually create that community that you want to have, because you can't help but encounter people. And that gives you the opportunity to make a connection if you can be open to that.
That's so beautiful. I'd love to hear more about the work you're doing to feed one another, right? You had mentioned that there's 30,000 individuals. Did you say per month?
Per month.
Per
So
month. Yeah.
DMARC is assisting folks from a pretty broad area of the state. So we've got probably a dozen counties right here in central Iowa that we're regularly seeing people come to our 14 pantry sites from.
Yeah.
And we know that there are folks seeking help at countless food pantries throughout the state. But in some of those rural communities, they just don't have the resources to provide enough. Or when people come to the metro area for healthcare or shopping, they use our food pantries because maybe they feel more comfortable doing that in a place where they're not known. There's a lot of shame and there's a lot of stigma for asking for help.
Mm.
And so we have seen a dramatic increase over the years, but since COVID ended and all of that pandemic assistance went away, the numbers just shot way up beyond what we were seeing prior to the pandemic. And we're coming up on November now. November is always the highest need month of the year. Every November, we reach our record for the year, and every year, it's a new record for all of our history.
Wow.
So last November, it was we hit almost 30,000 unique individuals, and we're looking at a November where we're going to surpass that. But there's another complication. So we're really staring down a pretty significant disaster. The government is shut down. And for the first time in history, there is the potential that SNAP benefits won't go out. So SNAP benefits would go out November 1st. And here in Iowa, that's $45 million to 260,000 individuals. And in just Polk County alone, that's $9 million going out to 50,000 individuals. And more than half of those are children and older Iowans. So that's a lot of significant food assistance that won't reach people in need. That's a lot of money that won't be spent at our local grocery stores if the government shutdown persists. And that is a crisis that our charity systems cannot make up the difference. There is no way that we can cover that kind of shortfall. And we're going to do everything we can to be there for our community, but we're not built to replace SNAP. I heard today that for every meal the charity system in Iowa provides for Iowans, 9 more are provided by SNAP. So
Holy
they're
cow.
asking us to basically do 10 times the work that we normally do. And we just can't. That's not possible. So we're asking folks right now, reach out to your federal elected leaders, your senators, your congressperson, call their offices, because if you can get your word through, we need folks to come together. We need folks to work through this. We need folks to get our government back to work because we're looking at a tragedy on an unprecedented scale. Not only for this, but for so many other programs, folks will suffer.
Sarah, those numbers are sobering. I just came from a clergy gathering an hour ago, and I think a lot of these other Des Moines area ministers are clocking the cliff that we're about to drive off here, in terms of support. I didn't have those numbers though. This idea that there'd be 50,000 people within Des Moines, and that 9 times the amount of meals that DMARC is providing to 30,000 people across 14 pantries. So I want immediately the question our listeners are having. Sorry, let me pause. Listeners, SNAP Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program might have been called food stamps when you were younger, right? But it's support for purchasing food. And so if that is not present November 1st, then we're talking about 50,000 people who can't afford the groceries or have to pick between groceries and rent or healthcare. So the question that arises for so many of us is how can we help? And the first thing you'd mention is to reach out because the scale of the problem is not something that even DMARC, which is scaled up to serve this many people, you're not going to be able to cover that. So reaching out to legislators. Are there asks? I mean, aside from maybe convene, are there asks like at least pass through a temporary stay to keep SNAP going?
Yeah, so reach out and explain that this is why you're concerned, that you want to make sure that your neighbors get that food assistance that they need right now, but also note that it's a huge economic benefit to have SNAP spent in our local grocery stores. And that's
Right.
$45 million that the state of Iowa and our economy is going to miss out on in the month of November. That's going to hurt a lot of communities. So it's not just the people who get SNAP, it's everybody as part of that economic system that benefits from SNAP dollars being spent in those communities. So it's going to hurt a lot of people in a lot of ways. But you can help the charity system as well. And so the first thing is always cash goes the furthest. So we buy direct from wholesalers to get the quantity of food we need and the quality because we like healthy food. We want to make sure it's the right kind of food and we want to make sure we can get it right out to the community. And so we can buy 6 times more food with your dollar than you can in the grocery store.
Wow.
So that's the best way to get help the fastest and most directly and the largest impact. Now, there's certain food items that we appreciate more than others. Fruit canned in juice, which is healthier, whole grain cereal, and peanut butter.
Okay.
We love those items. Just make sure you haven't opened them or eaten any of them and they're in date and of good quality.
Right.
We don't we don't want garbage. And about 10% of the food that is donated to our system is garbage. It's used out of date, open, damaged in some way, and it's inappropriate. And we have to throw it away. We don't want that. We want to make sure that however you reach out to help, it's something that it can go out to people in need. And then, of course, giving of your time is really important because we do need extra helping hands. And it's a good way to learn about how the system is functioning and what makes the biggest impact.
And now we're going to do a speed round of questions. This helps the listeners get to know you. So let's start with an easy one. What's your favorite place to eat in Des Moines?
So there's a restaurant called Kathmandu in Windsor Heights. And I love this restaurant. They have these momos, they're little dumplings, and the fried chicken momos are my absolute favorite. And I love all the folks at Kathmandu. Going there is like visiting friends.
Where's your favorite place to go outdoors?
The Raccoon River Park has a dog park, and it
Oh,
is the best dog park. My pups really love going there, and it's just nice. You do a nice loop and walk through the park, and they can run through the woods and pop out of the bushes and the trees, and they have a great time. And it's nice for the humans as well.
do you have a favorite place to go indoors?
Oh, I love the Des Moines Art Center.
Mhm.
There are some really incredible pieces in that collection that are just wonderful to see, especially on a really cold day.
Do you have a favorite grocery store?
Not really. I'm getting to know Costco better, but
Okay.
I haven't figured out how to maneuver my cart so I don't get into an accident yet because there's always so many people there. But I do like Costco in West Des Moines because there's always something interesting and new to purchase.
I have not yet been initiated into the world of Costco, but I've heard good things. Do you have a preference between the Cyclones, Hawkeyes, Bulldogs, or Panthers?
I'd have to say Bulldogs. My husband teaches at Drake,
Oh,
and so I'm not a sports person, but when anyone asks me Iowa or Iowa State, I say Bulldogs.
well said. We have some questions from our kids here. Why do we have to sleep?
Mm. I've heard that sleep actually cleans your brain. And so it's the body's way of kind of going through all of the work that your brain's been doing and cleaning up at night, kind of like how you might have to clean up the kitchen before you go to bed or put your stuff away before you go to sleep. And so I feel like it's a good way to dust out the cobwebs and then be ready to start fresh in the morning.
Well, you heard it there, children. I think that they were probably asking that at bedtime, cleaning up the brains. All right, and so our staff has a fantastic sense of humor. Sarah, would you rather work 4-day weeks, basically forever, or on a schedule where you work 2 months all the way through and then 1 month off?
I don't even know how to respond to this because I work every day.
Well,
As a minister, we should promote the Sabbath and have Sabbath, but
I was going to quote that. Yeah.
yeah, but honestly, because of all my different roles, I would love either because right now it's 7 days a week and pretty
Yeah.
much 14 hours a day.
I think I'm a 4 days a week forever person. Even when I was teaching, I couldn't stand to not work, July into early August. That felt like just delaying work that you were going to have to do anyways. And so your answer is 7 days a week. Got it.
Well, I honestly would kind of like the large block for a break because
Yeah.
I've heard that some ministers they actually get a sabbatical and then they
Uh,
get to go explore something or travel or do
yeah.
something. And I think that sounds lovely. It's never been a possibility for me because my ministries have always just kind of been different.
Mhm.
And even when I was in the parish, I wasn't able to stay in that same call long enough to get a sabbatical. So.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to promote?
Well, I don't know if it's so much promoting, but just know that it is really important that we have good elected leaders at every level. The elections are coming up for city council and school board. Please, folks, get out to participate. Every November, there is an election. It's important that you know who you're voting for. So do a little research before you get out to vote. Um, but for me, in my different callings, I think that, leadership's about serving the public, and I am seeking a new calling. So my time at DMARC will come to an end at the end of this calendar year because I'm running for Congress. And so that is the next venture and the next thing I'm looking towards in November of 2026.
That's fantastic. And let me just say, as someone new to Des Moines, getting to learn more about the work that you're doing with DMARC to feed those who need food is just extraordinary. And so thank you for that service. And I know you've also been serving the state as an elected state senator. So I'm wishing you all good things in this journey. I'm told that it is a 7-day a week schedule. But I'm hoping that you have the strength for that and the support because the work you're doing here in Des Moines is the good work.
Well, thank
Well,
you, Steve. There is a never-ending opportunity to do good work for all of us.
Reverend Sarah Trone Garriott, it is great to meet you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Keep on doing the good work.
Thank you so much.
And that does it for us today. Thank you all for joining us. Keep doing the good work, Des Moines.